the Vermont Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired. Since 1926, helping Vermonters to adjust to vision loss.
That's why we have the VABVI, just so we can get out there and be independent, get jobs and work.
There are so many more things that you've got to do in life. The only thing you can't do is see them. But you can hear them, you can touch them, you can smell them. If you have any dreams and aspirations, you better get going with life because you don't want to waste another minute.
My name is Erin Bessy, and I have a daughter who is now 19, is visually impaired. Her name is Julia Bessy. Her sister is 2 years older than her, almost to the day. Their birthdays are a day apart, and so Julia came home from the hospital on her sister Deanna's second birthday. And I often joke that Deanna hasn't forgiven me for that birthday present since. It's an extremely typical sibling rivalry relationship.
Adjusting to vision loss. Trauma, physical and social.
Just sitting nursing her actually one day, and I happened to notice that her pupils were not quite what I was expecting, because babies, the first few weeks they sleep a lot, so you don't notice it. So I said to my husband, I don't know if this is just a pigment issue, and he looked, and the look on his face, he said, yeah, we need to get her to the doctor right now. This was a Saturday. Monday we go to the ophthalmologist. And it's just pretty much changes your entire world that Saturday. I thought, well, my question to him was, well, is she blind? Can she see at all? And he didn't have an answer for us. So that 2 days in waiting from Saturday to Monday was pretty traumatic. So we go Monday to the ophthalmologist, and they are, she was very clinical, told us exactly what it was, and very nurturing in terms of what we might possibly expect, and what her vision might be and what to look for, and that basically she didn't know in terms of the functionality of Julia's vision. There'd have to be more testing, and time would tell. That day probably was the hardest for me because I remember coming out of the initial appointment and trying to put my coat on, and it was in March, and I collapsed on the floor, and my husband had to pick me up, and it's just incredibly traumatic. And we had a 2-year-old at the time, which of course you're trying to help raise a 2-year-old, and then your whole world just turns upside down.
Shock and denial.
I think in the beginning, Andy and I were simply just shocked because it's not something you expect, and you don't know how to handle it. You have this brand new baby. She was our second daughter. We thought, life was good, everything was going well, and then you get this pretty traumatizing news, and I thought, well, it's not as bad as what I think it could be. You hope for the best, and then you get this diagnosis that, yes, it involved both eyes, and it looked like it involved the optic nerve, and so months went by, and we had more tests, and lo and behold, we found out that it was bilateral coloboma, and it was basically a waiting game.
Mourning and withdrawal.
Did we grieve? Were we mad? Absolutely. I think we still worry because we want to make sure that we know she's going to get a college education, but does that necessarily mean she's going to be able to get a job and maintain a job and get herself to and fro to the job? Those are the little things that still worry us. I think there's rare occasions where I've seen her really angry at being visually impaired, but that's extremely rare.
Succumbing and depression.
I remember this because I think now, how ridiculous was it? I remember thinking, will she ever get married? That was my biggest first concern, was will she ever be accepted and be normal and get married? Which to me seems kind of shallow now, but it's not. It's you want your kids to grow up as normal as they can, as functioning as they can, and be accepted by society. But it has been hard for her to find friends. She's working on it, and it's coming slowly, but it's hard sometimes. That's a tough age group to walk into and be accepted until they know you, and that's everybody there as a freshman are trying to figure out who they are and who they can click with. And she's a sophomore now, but her freshman year did not go well in that sense. It's getting better.
Reassessment and reaffirmation.
It was awful. I think my husband was pretty much the rock at the time. He held it together pretty well. And then I think once I kind of got myself, okay, here's what we need to do, here's where we're going to contact people, we're going to get her all kinds of help. And then he would fall apart, and I would be his support. And then I would fall apart, and he'd be my support. So it's been an up and down kind of thing. I have to say the support and the services we got early on made a huge difference in terms of how we looked at her disability, how we raised her to feel like, yes, she had a disability, but that was not going to stop her from accomplishing things. She was maybe seven months. I was changing her. She was on the changing table, and the wind was blowing the curtains, and she reached up for the curtains. And I had family visiting, and I called them in, and I said, watch what she can do. And I think the first 6-7 months, we had no idea what her vision was. And then after that, we realized she had some functional vision. And then she was a toddler and walking, or at least crawling along things. And she reached for the balloons on the Teletubbies, right, because she gets really close to the TV. And that was another milestone. I'm like, oh, she can see TV, she sees color, she sees movement. And I think that gradual realization that she was going to have some functionality in her vision was extremely helpful in allowing us to not go down the rabbit hole of what ifs. What if she can't do this? What if she can't do that? And I think that was really helpful for not getting too depressed about it.
Coping and mobilization.
We met Stephanie Bissonette from VABVI, who was Julia's caseworker for that time until I think she might have been 10, and she worked with Stephanie, and we've been involved with VAB since. Julia's received services through VAB, or now that she's older and in college, she receives them through the State Department of the Blind. She went through regular schools, kindergarten, preschool, through high school in the regular school district. She was an honor student. She played soccer from the time she was in kindergarten till 8th grade. And then we made the executive decision as parents to say, the ball gets faster, it gets harder for you to track. Let's try another sport. And she fought beyond that. She wanted to continue to play soccer. She then started swimming and then switched from soccer, and in her freshman year in high school, I forced her to join the cross-country team. And then within 2 weeks, she's like, Mom, I'm so glad you did. Her sister happened to be on the team as well, so that worked nice. That she ran cross-country for 4 years. She varsity lettered in her sophomore year, junior year, and senior year. So she was actually the varsity runner. In cross-country, you have to be the top 7 runners to be on varsity teams, so she was pretty fast. And she also was the team captain in her senior year. And this is a kid whose vision is 2200, so she really can't see stumps, she can't see roots, she can't see rocks, she can't see divots. So I still am stunned that she was able to do this and do it very successfully. She did have a runner with her. She had somebody that would call out, okay, move to your left, move to your right, there's rocks on your left, there's some roots. So she did have somebody constantly running with her through the trails. But I myself have tried running through the trails and don't do nearly as well as she did. So I'm still kind of not sure how she figured that out. But she's an incredibly adaptive person. And we raised her to believe that she really could do anything she chose to do if she worked hard enough at it. So she's at college now. She's a second semester sophomore at Beverly, Massachusetts at Endicott College, and she made Dean's List her second semester freshman year, and this past semester she made Dean's List. So she's a pretty smart kiddo, and she's a criminal justice major, so she's considering pre-law and becoming a lawyer.
Self-acceptance and self-esteem.
Her vision is what it is, and we never pitied her, we never said, oh, you poor thing. We always expected from her the same as we did from her sighted sister. We always expected her to do well in school. We always expected her to put great effort into anything she tried to do. And I think we were very proactive. We did everything we possibly could to get help for her and to get her into early education programs. She went to preschool as a 3-year-old and got all kinds of accommodations made at the preschool. She went to public school preschool as well as private preschool. And I think we just implemented, basically we raised her as though she was not visually impaired, and she rose to the occasion. And we had lots of help on the way, of course, and that's always a good thing, to know that you're not alone, to get help and to use the help, and to realize that whatever their functionality is, there are ways to help people live in society and be successful and happy. And I have no doubt that she will get married and I will be a blubbering idiot at her wedding.
If you or a loved one needs assistance coping with vision loss, contact the Vermont Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, 802-863-1358. Or to learn more, go to our website, www.vabvi.org.
Also, from our website, you can obtain a copy of our booklet titled Educating Students with Visual Impairments in Vermont at www.vabvi.org.
Adjusting to Vision Loss, produced by the Vermont Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired. Narrated by Roy Lloyd. Videography and editing by Mike Quinlan.